Hello, I'm Cheryl Grant and I'm currently a member of the Consumer Advisory Panel of the Australia-New Zealand Breast Cancer Trials Group. First of all, I have to say that my approach to reviewing patient information sheets and clinical trial protocols is built on my experience as a trial participant. But moving beyond that and including my knowledge of how breast cancer is treated in Australia, I've mostly been involved in reviewing phase 3 chemotherapy trials for breast cancer, and that's what my perspective today is really built on. When I review a patient information sheet, the most important thing is to figure out whether it would be understandable by the average person. So when you're thinking about this, the average person who's just been offered a trial is probably under a lot of stress. They're making treatment decisions that they've probably never had to make that kind of decision before. So the patient information sheet must be understandable by them. The most important thing that a patient information sheet must do is it must actually reflect the protocol and the trial, the intention of the trial itself. For instance, are all the arms in the trial described in the patient information sheet? There's no point in focusing on only the treatment arm and the treatment drugs when half the patients in the trial may just receive standard care. And thinking about treatment schedules and the commitments required by the patient in the trial, they must all be spelt out so that the person can actually make a really informed decision about what is going to be expected of them. One thing that I like to see explained is how similar or different this is to what the normal treatment would be for a patient in the trial. There are a couple of key elements that a patient information sheet should include if they're appropriate. So often randomisation is involved, and randomisation and why it's done should be explained clearly. Again, blinding, if that's going to be used, must be explained and why. And the use of placebo drugs, if they're going to be used, then that really needs to be explained clearly so that potential participants don't think that they could end up with no treatment. And that's unlikely in the way trials are currently delivered. Information about the trial drugs must be included in the document, and any other treatments that are going to be given. The normal standard therapies that will be delivered as part of the trial must be included as within the description of the trial drugs or treatments as well. Any side effects that might be generated by the drugs should be described, including the risks of those side effects. So, are the side effects, are they commonly experienced or are they rare? There are some procedural issues that should be considered in the patient information sheet. What happens if a patient relapses while on the trial? What happens if the patient themselves wants to withdraw from the trial? Confidentiality of the patient's information must be included. And also, are there any costs? Are there going to be any costs to the patient, and how are they going to be managed? And one other thing is that trials are usually audited by a central administrative organisation, and that needs to be managed as well. When I'm reviewing a protocol, there are a range of questions I want to ask myself about it. What's the significance of this trial? Is it going to add to treatments that are currently available? If it's an international trial, how relevant is it to the way we deliver treatment in Australia? Is it radically different, for example? Really what I'm looking for on the whole there, does this trial have the potential to enhance treatments for Australians in Australia? It's important to read the scientific background that's presented in the trial protocol. Is the background relevant? Is the research that's presented, is it current? Is it old? Is it relevant? Does it build up the case for presenting this, for running this trial? An important part of the trial protocol documentation is the treatments that are being delivered and how they're going to be managed within the trial. What are the side effects? And how the side effects are going to be managed and monitored. So sometimes the frequency of testing can be an issue. Are there going to be any issues for participants in that that might prevent them from wanting to take part in the trial? Okay. It's really important in a trial to have strict eligibility criteria for participants in the trial. We want to make sure that we're getting the best pool of participants themselves. But also we want the pool of participants to be as wide as possible. So are there any exclusions that kind of don't make sense? Are the inclusion criteria and the exclusion criteria, are they related to known side effects of the treatments or drugs that are being offered? And do the baseline tests reflect the eligibility criteria? There's no hard and fast rule for reviewing a protocol and the patient information sheet. Every trial is different. You can have most impact in reviewing a clinical trial protocol if the earlier you are involved in the development of the concept and the protocol itself. You can give feedback to the scientists and the clinicians much more easily, and you can have more impact the earlier you can review it. For big international trials, that can be really difficult, but for locally developed trials, there's a possibility of developing a real collaboration and partnership with the clinicians involved in running the trial.